They gave me 9 minutes. Not 10, not 15. 9. 9 minutes sitting across a polished table before a man in a tailored suit glanced at his watch, smiled like he was doing me a favor, and said, "I don't think you're what we're looking for." No raised voice, no insults, just that calm, dismissive tone people use when they've already decided you don't matter. I nodded, thanked him for his time, stood up, and walked out. What he didn't know was that those 9 minutes were about to follow him for the rest of his life. Let me back up a little. My name isn't important, so let's call me Marcus Reed. I was raised to keep my head down, work hard, and not expect applause. Life taught me that early. I grew up watching people look past my mother in grocery store lines, hearing teachers assume I wouldn't amount to much, learning real fast how quiet disrespect can be. You know what I mean? It's never loud. It's a look, a pause, a tone that says, "You're not one of us." You learn to swallow that stuff because you have to. For years, I did everything right. Military service, overseas deployments, leadership roles where mistakes meant people got hurt. I carried responsibility the way some people carry keys, always on me, always heavy. Then I came home, started over, and found out something nobody tells you. The world doesn't care what you survived. It only cares what you look like today. I became a single father after my wife passed, and suddenly survival wasn't about missions or medals. It was about rent, school lunches, and making sure my daughter never felt the ground shaking beneath her feet, even when it was shaking under mine. That morning of the interview, I woke up before dawn, same as always. Habit. I made coffee in the dark, dressed in my best clothes, the kind you buy because they're clean and affordable, not because they make a statement. My daughter sat at the kitchen table swinging her legs, asking if I was nervous. I told her no, which was a lie, but a gentle one. I told her Daddy was just going to talk to some people about a job. She smiled and said, "You always talk good, Daddy." Kids have a way of cutting through the noise like that. The office was one of those places designed to intimidate you. Glass walls, expensive art. Silence that feels judgmental. The receptionist looked at me twice, not rude, just surprised, like I'd wandered in by accident. The interview panel didn't even bother with small talk. Straight to the resume, straight to the part where my recent work didn't match their idea of success. One of them said, "So you've been doing maintenance work?" I said yes. Another raised an eyebrow. That's when I felt it. The shift. The moment they stopped listening. When the man in charge cut it off at 9 minutes, I felt that familiar burn. Not anger. Something colder. The understanding that no matter how carefully you build yourself, someone can still decide you're small. I walked out holding it together, picked up my daughter from the waiting area, and told her it went fine. Because that's what dads do. We absorb the impact so they don't have to. We cut through a cafe on the ground floor to leave, and that's where everything changed. 3 men in suits were crowding a young woman at a table, laughing, blocking her space. She kept saying she was working, that she had a reservation, her voice steady but thin. One of the men leaned in too close. Another pulled her chair just enough to scare her. And the room did what rooms like that always do. It went quiet. People stared into cups, phones, menus. Silence is a choice. People forget that. My daughter squeezed my hand. I felt that old switch flip, the one I'd tried to keep buried. I told her to sit at the booth and not move. She nodded, serious. I walked over and said, "Gentlemen, she asked you to leave her alone." One of them laughed. The leader, expensive watch, practiced confidence, said, "Mind your business." I said, "This is my business now." He shoved me. That's all it took. I didn't swing. I didn't shout. I controlled his arm, guided him down. Held him there just long enough for reality to settle in. His friends froze. I told him to apologize. He did. They left fast, pride bleeding all over the floor. The woman looked like she might cry. I asked if she was okay. She nodded, whispered thank you. Someone clapped once, then stopped embarrassed. I turned back to my daughter, and that's when a man in his late 60s approached us, moving faster than he had any right to. He introduced himself as Daniel Hargrove, the founder of the company upstairs. He'd watched everything. Asked if we could talk. I almost said no, almost walked out. But my daughter looked up at me and said, Daddy, he looks nice. Kids again, seeing what adults miss. We sat. Daniel didn't talk like an executive. He talked like someone who'd been in rooms where things went wrong fast. He described exactly what I'd done, why it mattered. He asked about my background, my life now. When I told him I cleaned buildings at night, he didn't flinch. Instead, he looked angry not at me, but at the idea of it. He offered me a job right there. Not charity. A real offer. Training, leadership, flexibility so I could still be a father first. I didn't say yes right away. I said I needed to think. He smiled and said that was exactly the answer he hoped for. Of course, the story didn't end clean. The man I'd restrained had a father with money and connections. Lawyers called. Threats came wrapped in polite language. They wanted me fired, wanted the whole thing erased. Daniel stood his ground. He said no. Said he'd seen the truth with his own eyes. That kind of loyalty hits different when you're not used to it. My first weeks on the job weren't easy. People tested me. One senior instructor challenged me in front of everyone, wanted to see if I was real. I let him come at me. Didn't throw a punch. Ended it clean. The room changed after that. Respect does that. Even the man who dismissed me in 9 minutes eventually watched one of my sessions. Afterward, he came up to me quieter than before and said I was wrong. I nodded. I didn't rub it in. Victory doesn't need commentary. Months passed. Life stabilized in ways I hadn't dared to imagine. I bought my daughter new shoes without checking my account first. I paid for a school trip without stress. One night, she asked if I was a hero. I told her no. I told her heroes leave at the end of the movie. Dads stay. She smiled like that settled it. Here's the part that still sticks with me. None of this happened because the world suddenly got fair. It happened because in one moment when it mattered, I didn't shrink. I didn't become what they expected me to be. I stood where I was exactly as I was, and that was enough. So here's my question for you. Was I right to step in knowing it could cost me everything? Was the interviewer wrong or just a product of the system that taught him who mattered? How many times have you seen someone dismissed in minutes, judged by surface details instead of substance? Drop a comment. Tell me what you think, because stories like this don't end in silence. They end in conversation.